In the bustling heart of Mumbai, amidst the chaotic lanes of Dadar, two young boys grew up together. Their names were Raghav Joshi and Imran Qureshi, and while their fathers ran a modest electrical shop, their dreams were far bigger than the cramped lanes they called home. Before we dive into this gripping story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. And if you love stories packed with mystery and drama, don't forget to like this video and hit that subscribe button. There's so much more coming your way. Raghav and Imran were more than friends. They were brothers, bound not just by blood, but by a shared vision. They dreamed of creating something bigger than themselves, a billion-dollar empire, a company that would change the landscape of India's energy sector forever. Their vision? Nexengrid, a renewable energy tech startup aimed at revolutionizing urban solar panels. They started small. Late-night brainstorming sessions, DIY solar panel kits, and sleepless nights. The first few years were rough, but the ambition never wavered. By 2018, they had achieved what few could even dream of. Nexengrid became a success, attracting investors from across the globe. The world was at their feet. They were no longer the two boys in Dadar, they were the kings of an energy empire. But success, they would soon learn, came at a steep price. Ambition, unchecked, breeds greed, and greed breeds betrayal. In the midst of this success, something began to change. Their relationship, once solid, started to crack. Imran, once the quiet, calculated partner, began to drift. Raghav could feel it, though he didn't have the proof yet. One evening, Raghav's wife, Aditi, found something odd, something that made her stomach churn. Hidden beneath Imran's desk drawer was a list of passwords. Shell companies, accounts, offshore, beyond the radar. And in the dim light of the evening, a chilling realization set in for Raghav. Something was wrong. Very wrong. But what did this mean for Raghav, and what did it mean for Nexengrid? That same week, a significant investor, a name Raghav had trusted implicitly, pulled out of their latest round of funding. $70 million, gone in an instant. And that wasn't the worst of it. Raghav found a cryptic email, subject line: "He's selling you out." Enter Rajveer Batra, a man whose reputation preceded him. A suave, charismatic venture capitalist, Rajveer had made millions, not just by building, but by destroying. He was the king of mergers, the prince of hostile takeovers, and there was something almost predatory in the way he looked at potential victims. For years, Rajveer's name was synonymous with controversy. He was accused, never convicted, of manipulating companies into bankruptcy just to buy them out for pennies on the dollar. Nexengrid, it seemed, was his next target. Imran, seeing a golden opportunity, began to take private meetings with Rajveer. At first, it was subtle, casual discussions about market trends, investments, and the future. But things quickly escalated. Rajveer wasn't just interested in a partnership, he was interested in control. Imran was tempted. His ego was bruised, and the allure of controlling the entire Nexengrid empire without Raghav's constant scrutiny was too strong. Rajveer made an offer he couldn't refuse. "Leave Raghav behind," Rajveer said. "With my resources, I'll fund you. You'll be in charge." And that was the moment everything changed for Imran. But betrayal wasn't as easy as it seemed. The quiet undercurrents of guilt began to tug at Imran's conscience. But it was too late to turn back. Rajveer's influence was too powerful, and the stakes were too high. It was that same week, when Raghav was trying to make sense of the missing funds, that his father suddenly collapsed at a public event. Hearted? Maybe. But what followed was far more disturbing. Raghav received an encrypted email. The subject line read, "Imran's a traitor. Find the truth before it's too late." The whistleblower was Priya Mehra, a young and bright engineer at Nexengrid. Priya had always been dedicated to the company, loyal, hardworking, the epitome of everything Nexengrid stood for. But one evening, while reviewing some accounts, Priya stumbled across something disturbing: duplicate invoices, forged documents, and most alarmingly, server logins from an unfamiliar IP address. She reported everything to Raghav, trusting him, believing that if anyone could fix it, it would be him. The next day, Priya was found dead in her apartment. The cause? Suicide. But Raghav knew it wasn't true. He could feel it in his bones. Priya had been murdered, silenced to cover up the truth. She had been too close to the heart of the conspiracy. Her mother, devastated by the loss, received an anonymous package days later, a USB drive. Inside the drive, a set of voice recordings. Imran's voice, speaking to someone on the other side of the line. The conversation was chilling. "Handle her. Quietly." It was clear now. Priya had been murdered to cover up the embezzlement. As Raghav prepared to confront Imran, he received a text message. It was from an unknown number. "What you're about to learn will change everything." Raghav couldn't shake the feeling that the walls were closing in. As his mind raced, his thoughts went to Imran, his once loyal friend, now a shadow of the man he had known. Raghav decided to confront him, to demand answers that would explain the unraveling chaos at Nexengrid. The meeting was set for late in the evening at a private lounge in South Mumbai, the kind of place where business deals were sealed with a glass of expensive whiskey. Raghav arrived first, scanning the room, feeling a mix of anger and betrayal swirling in his chest. He wasn't prepared for what he would hear tonight. Imran walked in, his usual confident smile replaced with an air of discomfort. There was a nervousness about him that Raghav hadn't seen before, a hint of guilt in his eyes. They exchanged pleasantries, but it was clear the tension between them was palpable. "Imran," Raghav said, his voice low and steady. "I know what's been happening. The offshore accounts. The shell companies. The money we lost." He paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle. Imran shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his hands trembling slightly. He knew the game was up, but he couldn't bring himself to admit what he had done. "Raghav, you don't understand. This is bigger than both of us." Raghav leaned forward, his eyes locking onto Imran's. "Don't lie to me. You've been planning this for months, haven't you? Selling us out. Selling me out." Imran's face hardened, and for a moment, Raghav thought he saw a flicker of remorse. But then, Imran's voice cut through the silence. "I had no choice, Raghav. Rajveer offered me a way out. A way to take Nexengrid to the next level. But at what cost? It's too late now. You can't stop what's coming." Raghav's pulse quickened. "You're working with him, aren't you? Rajveer Batra. The same man who's known for destroying companies, leaving them in ruins." Imran nodded, his expression grim. "He has the power to take us global. He can make us billions. But we have to make sacrifices. We have to be willing to play dirty." Raghav felt the ground shift beneath him. The man who had once been his closest ally was now a part of the very system he had despised. Imran had crossed a line, and Raghav couldn't forgive him for it. "You've betrayed me, Imran," Raghav said, his voice cold. "You've betrayed everything we built." Imran's gaze softened for a moment, but he didn't speak. The damage was done. The betrayal was complete. The days that followed were a blur for Raghav. His mind was consumed by the realization that Nexengrid was no longer his company. It had been taken from him, piece by piece, by the man he had trusted more than anyone. Imran's meetings with Rajveer became more frequent, and Raghav soon found himself locked out of critical company decisions. His access to Nexengrid's financials was revoked, and his influence in the company dwindled to nothing. It felt like he was watching his creation slip through his fingers. Determined not to give up without a fight, Raghav called in his most trusted allies, Kiran Patel, the head of legal at Nexengrid, and Ravi Shetty, the company's chief technology officer. Together, they began to dig deeper into the shady dealings that Imran had orchestrated. What they uncovered was worse than Raghav could have imagined. Imran and Rajveer weren't just siphoning off money from Nexengrid, they were also planning to sell the company to a rival conglomerate, one that had been eyeing Nexengrid's cutting-edge technology for years. If the deal went through, Raghav would lose everything. His company, his reputation, and everything he had worked for. Raghav knew he had to act quickly. The time for diplomacy was over. It was time for war. But in the shadows, a more dangerous player was lurking, Vikram Sethi, a ruthless corporate assassin with a reputation for eliminating anyone who stood in the way of a profitable deal. Vikram had been brought in by Rajveer to clean up any loose ends. And Raghav was quickly becoming one of those ends. Raghav's every move felt like it was being watched. His phone calls were intercepted. His emails were monitored. It became clear that Rajveer and Imran were preparing for a full-fledged takeover. One evening, as Raghav left his office, he noticed a black car following him. He tried to shake it off, but the car stayed with him. His heart raced as he made a series of turns, trying to lose the tail. But the car was relentless. Eventually, Raghav found himself in a deserted alley, the car blocking his path. The door opened, and out stepped Vikram Sethi, a man Raghav had only heard about in hushed tones. Vikram's cold eyes scanned Raghav as he approached, a smile playing at the corner of his lips. "You're a hard man to find," Vikram said, his voice smooth, like silk over a blade. "But I'm afraid it's time to end this little game of yours." Raghav's mind raced. He couldn't let Vikram get the upper hand, not now, not when everything was on the line. "I'm not afraid of you," Raghav said, his voice steady. "You won't get away with this." Vikram chuckled. "You're too late. Imran's already signed the deal. Rajveer has the company, and there's nothing you can do to stop it." The words stung, but Raghav wasn't ready to give up. He still had one card left to play, a card that could bring everything crashing down. "I'll see you soon," Raghav said, turning on his heel and walking away, but not without a plan forming in his mind. With time running out, Raghav hatched a risky plan to expose Imran and Rajveer for their crimes. He knew he couldn't do it alone, but he had one ally left, Priya's mother, who had been quietly gathering evidence on Rajveer's activities. Together, they found a backdoor into the company's server system, where they uncovered a damning video, Rajveer's admission that he had orchestrated the entire scheme, from embezzling funds to forcing Imran to betray Raghav. With this evidence in hand, Raghav contacted the media, knowing it would be his only chance to bring the truth to light. The next few days were a whirlwind. Raghav's world, once on the brink of collapse, began to shift once again. The video went viral, and the public outrage was palpable. Investors pulled out of Rajveer's other ventures, and the government launched an investigation into Nexengrid's activities. Imran, too, was exposed for his role in the scandal. But the battle was far from over. The true war was just beginning. As the media frenzy intensified, Raghav found himself in the middle of a legal and financial battle that threatened to ruin him. But he was no longer the man who once feared losing everything. He had tasted the bitter truth of betrayal and emerged stronger for it. With Rajveer's empire crumbling, and Imran facing the consequences of his actions, Raghav prepared for the final showdown. This time, there would be no turning back. And so, the story of Raghav Joshi and Imran Qureshi, the tale of ambition, betrayal, and revenge, continues, unfolding in ways neither could have predicted. The battle for Nexengrid was far from over, but one thing was clear: Raghav would never stop fighting for what was rightfully his. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, former employees, rival businessmen, everyone wanted a front-row seat to the greatest corporate scandal India had witnessed in decades. The battle for Nexengrid had become more than a business dispute. It was now a full-blown public spectacle. Raghav Joshi stood at the center of it all, dressed in a crisp gray suit, his face unreadable. Across from him sat Imran Qureshi, gaunt and weary, his eyes darting nervously around the room. And beside Imran, flanked by a team of top-tier lawyers, was Rajveer Batra, the man who had almost destroyed Raghav's legacy. The charges were serious: financial fraud, embezzlement, corporate espionage, and criminal conspiracy. The evidence Raghav had provided, the recordings, the financial trails, the signed agreements, painted a damning picture. Rajveer's confident smirk had disappeared. Imran barely made eye contact with anyone. Raghav's testimony was calm and composed. He detailed the rise of Nexengrid, the years of blood and sweat, and how a trusted friend had sold him out. The courtroom hung on his every word. He wasn't just telling a story, he was reliving a trauma that had nearly broken him. Imran, in a surprise twist, took the stand and broke down. With tears streaming down his face, he confessed to everything. He spoke of pressure, of being blackmailed, of how Rajveer had threatened to destroy his family if he didn't cooperate. His voice cracked as he begged Raghav for forgiveness. Raghav looked at him for a long moment. Then he nodded. "I don't hate you," he said, "but you made your choice." Rajveer, however, remained defiant. His lawyers tried to dismiss the charges as a vendetta, but the weight of evidence was too much. The court sentenced Rajveer to 15 years in prison. Imran received a lighter sentence with parole due to his cooperation. The gavel came down. Justice was served, but the victory felt bittersweet. With Rajveer and Imran gone, Nexengrid faced an uncertain future. Shareholder trust had eroded, employees had fled, and projects were frozen. The company Raghav had once built with pride was now a ghost of its former self. But Raghav was not a man who accepted defeat. He took the helm again, this time as CEO with full control. One by one, he reached out to his old team, those who hadn't left or who were willing to return. He brought back Kiran, Ravi, and others who had stood by him. With Priya by his side, not just as a business partner but now also as the woman he loved, Raghav began the painful but necessary process of rebuilding. They pivoted Nexengrid toward cleaner technologies and grassroots innovation. They opened scholarship programs for underprivileged students and funded startups led by young Indian entrepreneurs. The narrative around the company began to shift. Raghav gave public interviews, not to boast, but to share hard-earned lessons. His humility, his willingness to admit past mistakes, and his vision for the future won back hearts and minds. In 2 years, Nexengrid was not just profitable again, it was celebrated. Years passed. Raghav Joshi became a national figure, a symbol of integrity in the murky world of corporate India. He started a foundation to mentor young business leaders. He turned down offers to sell Nexengrid for astronomical sums. He had learned the true value of loyalty, legacy, and love. Imran, released early, went to live quietly in Kerala. He never tried to rebuild his career but devoted his life to teaching business ethics at a local college. Raghav never visited, but he occasionally sent donations in Imran's name. Rajveer Batra remained in prison, his empire long crumbled. He became a cautionary tale in business schools across the country. And Priya? She and Raghav got married in a quiet ceremony, away from the limelight. Their love, forged in the fires of betrayal and chaos, became Raghav's greatest source of strength. On the 10th anniversary of Nexengrid's rebirth, Raghav stood on stage, addressing a crowd of thousands. This company was almost destroyed by greed, but it was saved by truth. No matter how dark the night gets, integrity will always find the morning. The crowd rose in thunderous applause. And so, from the depths of corporate treachery, rose a man who refused to bow. Raghav Joshi's story wasn't just a crime thriller. It was a testament to the power of redemption. Thanks for watching. If you're hooked on gripping stories like this, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more thrilling tales. Your support means the world to us. With love and gratitude, I invite you to join our community for more captivating content. Subscribe now for more stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Thank you.